Oh, there you go.
Away you go.
Somebody's recording it. Got it. Okay. Well, for a number of years now, I've been doing DX-Peditions, and so in fact, I've done 35 DX-Peditions now over the years to 28 different countries, mostly in the Pacific, and that's where we'll concentrate on this evening, just in the Pacific area. But I've also been out into the Indian Ocean to the likes of Sri Lanka, Maldives, Seychelles Islands. But we'll skip those ones for a moment and concentrate just on the Pacific. So I think if I hit that button there, a few of my past adventures have been out into the Kermadec Islands. Kermadec Islands are north of New Zealand. Then there's the Auckland and Campbell Islands, which are subantarctic islands. That's between New Zealand here and the Antarctica. That was ZL1BQD. Then also, I think that one features Norfolk Island, Rotuma Island, and Noumea. So those are some of the past. We're going right back to the 1980s now. And so Kermadec and Auckland Islands are back in 1984 and 86 respectively. And then some of the more recent DX-Peditions have been into South Cook Islands, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste, that's if you head to the top of Australia, then head towards Indonesia. Your Timor-Leste is between Indonesia and the very north of Australia. Papua New Guinea, I travel out Papua New Guinea on quite a regular basis. Tonga, Niue, Nauru, Vanuatu. So all these are weird and wonderful names, but for very lovely islands all around the Pacific. Papua New Guinea have been up there, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe even more times there. Now, my reason for traveling around most of the Pacific Islands is that I am involved in commercial radio and have been so for many, many years. As the head engineer here for one of our very large radio corporations in New Zealand until I retired. And then at the same time, where I was also traveling around the Pacific, helping out mainly mission type radio stations through various islands right throughout the Pacific, keeping commercial FM radios on air and installing them and keeping them active. So typical of the Pacific Islands is that you do get a lot of downtime, a lot of wait and see time, and tomorrow time. And so what better way for an amateur radio operator to spend the time other than to throw something up in the air and start transmitting from these various islands and making a DX-Pedition of it. So let's visit some of these islands, and I think the first one up is, well, just to give you an idea of the area that I'm talking about, and that's this Pacific area here, bounded by this here. So we're centered on around about Fiji is in the middle, out to Australia that way, New Zealand down here, Hawaii up around here. Timor-Leste happens to be right in that little area there. Can everybody see the little red dot? No, okay. Yep, okay, good. So that's the area we're looking at. Just as a bit of perspective, I gave this address actually up in at the DX convention at Visalia a few years ago, and this is what the world looks like centered on. In this case, it was a Visalia, which was in California, and to let the Americans sort of know, well, what does the world look like from their perspective, and that's what it looks like from their perspective. But from my perspective out in the Pacific, that's what the world looks like. And so it's quite a different perspective on where things are. And then for my own particular QTH here in Auckland, so we're going to have Auckland's in the centre here. Now you can see some of the frustration that we have here in New Zealand and trying to get to Africa, because Africa's this great big green blob around the side here. Here's East Africa there, and West Africa across here, South Africa down here. The big problem is this green patch right here in the middle, and that's called the Antarctica. And so to get Africa from here, from New Zealand, that short path across there over the pole is very, very difficult indeed on most bands. So you ask any New Zealand operator what country they'd really like to get, it'll often be an African country of some sort. That's our nemesis. Incidentally, when you're looking at that, where's UK on this map? And most people go, I don't know, can't see it. Well, yeah, it's spread evenly right around the outside of this globe. So almost we can beam almost anywhere and get UK from New Zealand, because the border of Portugal and Spain is our antipode country. So that's spread right around the outside of that globe there. It's kind of interesting. Okay, let's get into some of these islands. The first one I want to talk about is the South Cook Islands. Lovely, lovely place. Beautiful. I mean, what you see there, that beautiful sand there on the beach, that's exactly what you get. And it's in fact, when I go up to the South Cook Islands, I normally rent a villa right on the beach, and you can see my operating position out on the back porch there. We've got beautiful, beautiful temperatures there, so it's, you can operate all night out, just sitting out there on the patio, provided the mosquitoes will leave you alone. So you take care of that elsewhere. Now, on the right hand side there, those are the antenna masts that I use. The coconut trees everywhere, just begging to have wires thrown up into the middle of them, and it's easy to sling a dipole up any of those coconut trees, or more often what I do is I try to get a flat top type dipole between coconut trees, and that works extremely well. And of course, being right on the ocean, as you see there, the takeoff is absolutely fantastic. It's just couldn't be better. Of course, the reciprocal, if you get good transmit, the reciprocal is true too. You can definitely hear things going on when you're in that sort of position. It's just quiet. There's no electrical noise anywhere on the island to sort of cause you problems like we have here in the middle of the city here in Auckland. You know, and you'd find that in most of your major cities anywhere around the place. Your noise floor is several S units to start off with. Well, often I have switched on my radio and gone, oh no, what's the problem now? Yeah. And until you start tuning around, and all of a sudden you start hearing signals. It's so quiet that you often mistake the fact that the radio may not be working properly. So that's my one of my operating positions when I go up to the Cook Islands. And so just sitting on the table, just set up a radio on the table out on the patio. As I say, those trees in the background there, run a piece of coax out to them, put antennas up in the trees. You see on the right hand side there, that tree, that coconut tree there, leaning out over the water. And I often use that tree with a dipole slung up in there, and it works perfectly. The thing is, most of this presentation actually will be on the digital modes. So I apologize, it's far from AM as you can possibly get, but there we be. This is a sort of, if any of you have ever been on to FT8 or JT65 or any of the digital modes and so on like that, you'll know you'll have a receive window. Well, as soon as I start up anywhere in the islands, that's what the receive window just goes instantly red with people calling, and it just stays that way every time you come up. So there's no lack of people wanting to get hold of you, that's for sure. I think that is on JT65 there with a full screen of mainly VKs calling there. So let's take a trip a little bit further to the north and to the west and get up into the Melanesia area, and that's into Papua New Guinea. To get to Papua New Guinea from New Zealand, we have to fly to Brisbane, then overnight in Brisbane, Brisbane to Port Moresby. The next day, stay in Port Moresby a night, and then the next day I catch another plane to go up to the top of Papua New Guinea to a place called Wewak. And then if I want to get out into the end of the villages, then the way to get out to the villages is by canoe up up one of the rivers like that. I think that canoe is transporting some gear up to the station. When I finally get there, that's one of the AM stations. Well, there's an AM station there and also FM at a place called Wewak. Lovely little place, and of course I'm able to stay in one of those chalets you can see there. In fact, the one that's, you see where the car is, this chalet here happens to be the one that I stay in, and you'll notice that it's in very close proximity to this 200-foot tower. So when I'm staying at the station there, I'm able to get one of the boys to climb up that tower and put up a fan dipoles of 1 on 20, 1 on 40, 1 on 80 or something like that. Sling them at 220 feet at the top of the tower, and people can hear me pretty well, thank you. And so I often operate from there. That's another shot of that the same tower. Or if I'm out in the villages, then I'll normally take a vertical pole of some sort and sling something up from the top of the pole, or there's always trees or coconut trees or something like that we can use to sling antennas up. So this young chap by the name of Isaac is manages the radio station that I showed you in the previous slides. And I'm actually working with Isaac at the moment to get so that he can get a license for himself. And when he gets a license, he'll be the, I think, the first Indigenous person to be out in Papua New Guinea to actually get an amateur radio license. I should be able to go, hopefully at the beginning of next month, I'll be back up in Papua New Guinea and take Isaac for his exam. He's ready for that. And I'll take an ICOM 730 and 7300 and a pole like this, some sort of DX commander or something like that, and set him up, and we'll have Isaac on the air, which will be a lot of fun. So there's young Isaac wanting to steal my Alicraft KX3. I also wanted to steal my headphones as well, but no, we'll deck him out with something, that's for sure. And again, when as soon as you start up anywhere in Papua New Guinea, one CQ and the screen just full, just hundreds of people calling just straight away. So you got a instant pile up if you're not not used to dealing with pileups in, well, you soon learn. And so up to Timor-Leste. As I said, Timor-Leste is the top of Australia, between Australia and New Zealand and Indonesia. One of the difficulties is always to get a license when you go to these places. So to get a license in Timor-Leste, you better allow yourself at least 3 days, possibly 4 days, to get a license. The first day will be to go and introduce yourself and say you want a license, and they'll give you the paperwork to fill out. The second day you go back with your paperwork filled out, and the engineer will scrutinize that. And here's a hint, take your radio gear with you as well, because that'll save you a day, because you'll send you away again and say, bring back all your gear, we want to inspect your gear. So they don't know what they're doing, but they have a look at it and they want you to fire it up and show them it working. It'll be your third day. The fourth day, your license then goes off to the president. He signs the license. And then on the fourth day afternoon, or maybe even the fifth day, you'll finally get your piece of paper in your hand and you can start transmitting. So it's quite an ordeal to get a license in Timor-Leste. Papua New Guinea is a little bit different. I work a lot with the government agencies in all of these islands. And so basically it was, I'd like to have an amateur radio license. They didn't know what an amateur radio license was. So I opened up their regulations and give them a lesson on how to, on their regulations, using me as an example. And I write myself out a license and away we go. The way of the islands. In Timor-Leste, that's a little radio shack that's on top of one of the mountains, and I was able to set up in there. Blistering heat, though. We're looking at about 47 degrees Celsius in there, and that's in the that's not the heat of the day either. And again, there's a lovely tower there I can sling some stuff up onto. And that's at the top of a mountain looking back down into Dili. That town, city you see in the background there against the coast, it's the city of Dili in Timor, or Timor-Leste. So that's our radio station. It's an FM station and designed to cover the city of Dili. So when I'm not operating from the top of the hill there, I'll operate down in the city, but the city being the city is very, very noisy and quite difficult, really. Transportation is something to behold up in Timor-Leste. That's all our radio gear packed into the boot of a taxi, and I make sure that I'm at the front of that taxi, telling him where to go. Otherwise, that's the last you'll see of your gear, that's for sure. And the other form of transport is motorbike, and motorbike. So there's a whole family on the motorbike there. What you can't see is there's one little boy standing at the front there, and packed between. Then his sister is behind him. Then Dad sort of holds sister and brother on the front. There's another little individual here in the middle, packed in between mum and dad. So there's 5 on this motorbike. Kind of interesting, isn't it, that the parents wear the helmets and the kids doesn't matter. So that's quite typical. You have to see a motorbike with a whole family on it, trying to make their way around the city of Dili. Okay, back down mid-Pacific now into the Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands are well, put it this way, Solomon Islands, when the Brits were there and looking after the place, was very, very lovely and very nice and clean and just beautiful. let me say it's a little bit different now, but still nonetheless quite a nice place. I often go out to an island called Gizo Island. Gizo Island is made up of two islands, actually. One island has the airport on it, and this is it. That's the whole island is taken up with the airport, or the runway. You miss the runway at the other end there, and you're definitely in the drink straight away. Yeah, it's a very short runway, and it's quite a bit of fun getting into there. Supposing you make it and so on like that, and then you hop on a boat and then you go across to the other island where everybody lives. So that's just a bit of a glimpse out of the front of the aircraft. When I get there, this is part of a village that I often stay in. And once again, you can see all these towers. They grow their towers up there, and they grow very, very high indeed, 60 to 70 feet. And it's a very easy thing to get a little 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy to climb up one of those. They actually walk up them, up these trees, and put a dipole or antennas at the top of these trees for you, or the coconut trees. We're right on the middle of it. We're surrounded by water. There's a lagoon. I'm virtually got my feet in the lagoon taking this photo. And so once again, you get that lovely saltwater takeoff with a very, very high, well, a dipole, which is at a decent height. Oh, that's a shot of the small radio stations which we're putting up. Just preparing a pole to strap against the side of that building. Strap the pole against the side of the building, and that's an FM. We'll have an FM antennas at the top there. 100-watt FM transmitter will on broadcast frequencies. That'll cover the whole of the island. No problem at all. Occupational safety and safety. That doesn't exist, so don't come at me for any safety procedures you see around the place. So now sort of heading back towards New Zealand a little bit more into Western Samoa, and again it's a commercial radio station there, which I often go to, and it's quite nice. I've got two locations there I can sling antennas from. One location is in town, or fairly close to the city of Apia, and I quite like that there. It's a reasonable place to operate from. Or if I really want to get out and do some low band stuff, then the tower on the right hand side there is a disused AM tower, and so I'm able to couple into the coupler at the bottom of that tower and get myself going on 160 meters or 80 meters quite nicely, thank you. And so a couple of 100 watts or so into the bottom of the tower like that on 80 meters or 160 meters gets you a very, very long way, and that worked extremely well. It's on a quite a marshy, swampy sort of ground, so the earth potential is very, very low indeed. And it's a nice site, other than for the inevitable mosquitoes which come out and play at night. So it's take your malaria tablets with you and suck on those all the time, and you should be okay. Should is the operative word. And that's my sort of operating position in town with at the studios there. Some of you may have worked 5 Whiskey 1 Sugar Alpha, 5W1SA. Atsu, he's a Japanese guy who actually living in Samoa. He's married a local girl, That's Artu's shack there, full of linear amplifiers to burn. I think there's about 5 or 6 linear amplifiers, all 2 kilowatt jobs of various sorts, and of various sorts of repair. But I often visit Artu, and he has a little bed at the back there of the shack there. There's a little bed there. So I'll bunk down there, and I can play with his radio gear anytime I like. So that's quite fun when I want to go 5 Whiskey 1 radio. Incidentally, if any of you do hear calls out of the Pacific and the suffix is RR or radio, pretty much it'll be me. So wherever I go to these Pacific Islands, because I have the government contacts and so on like that, I'm able to basically get a local license. Is the first thing, instead of going 5 Whiskey stroke ZL1BQD. I'm able to get a local license and also stipulate, hey, I want RR as a suffix. So. At the Tonga, once again, A35RR, the recurring theme. Tonga is quite an interesting place. It's subject to cyclones. Here we are, mid-cyclone, and there's people walking around, not giving too much care that something like this head of this coconut tree is about ready to come off. And when they come off, it's you got the head of a coconut tree comes off like a cannonball, and that can cause a horrific amount of damage. And what often happens though is that coconut tree is under tremendous tension, and as soon as that head comes off, the tree flicks back again, and it'll often have ripe coconuts still on top of that tree. So the head goes one way, and these coconuts get like a slingshot thrown in the opposite direction, and get hit by a flying coconut, and you know all about it. That's for sure. So the cyclones right throughout the Pacific are quite common. And of course, the damage is extensive. Homes are not built quite the way that we're used to in our Western society. But life goes on, and we're happy anyway. So it's quite the Pacific reaction, you know. Oh well, no, get the chainsaw, cut it down, let's build another house. It's and so that's just one little place I was operating from. There's a spare pole of some sort out the backyard, so I use that as to run dipoles from. Those of you that got really keen eyes will be able to see a trap there, and should be one out there using a trap dipole in that situation, I think. And so at the end of the day, that's what we have. Beautiful sunset, and everything is fine in the Pacific. Thank you. So at this stage, do we have any questions? And if you, I don't know how much time we've got, Simon.
There's no questions from me at the moment. I'm feeling slightly envious of all these beautiful and intriguing places to visit. But I'm quite happy for you to go on for another 15-20 minutes if you've got it, Roly. If not, then it's entirely up to your good self, sir.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll tell you what we can do is I'll revisit one of the DX-Peditions I did way back. That's down to the Kermadec Islands. And,
yeah, sounds good to me. Everyone happy?
Just give me a second, and I'll set a couple of things up here online.
No, that's great. I'm sure there'll be a few comments and questions from one or two of us at the end. Slightly different to DX-Peditioning around Europe.
Yeah, a little bit, eh?
Oh yeah, which is why I thought you'd be good to get on. Those who haven't seen Roly on YouTube, but he's got his own YouTube channel. And he's also appeared with Callum, the DX Commander, on a few bits and pieces. And I sort of caught him on these bits and bobs and thought, well, I'll send him an email and see if he'll come on and talk Sunshine and the expeditions whilst we're stuck at the back end of, well, I suppose it's meteorological spring next week, isn't it? So we're heading in the right direction. I'll just go back to silence and we'll just wait for Roly a second.
Okay, we'll set this up again. Like you can see me top right hand corner. All right, this is when I was a young man. Quite different now. So that's me sitting down in the middle of the boat there. To the right there is an American fellow which came up to the Kermadec Islands. Kermadec Islands is where 600 miles or whatever that is in kilometers now, 1,000 kilometers north of New Zealand. So to the right of me there is Dwayne. He's an American fellow that came back with me. Behind me is another New Zealand amateur called John Litton, ZL1AAS. Sadly, he is now silent key. So that's so we're about ready to set off from Auckland. And hold on, what are we doing? So now we're traveling down the Auckland Harbour. Auckland is in the background and behind us, out the Auckland Harbour on our way north to the Kermadec Islands. We travel we're in a yacht. It's a ferrous cement yacht, not a tremendously big one, but after I think it was 2 days of sailing, there's a very, very faint blip on the horizon there, and that's the first of the Kermadec Islands. One called Cheeseman Rock and the other one called Curtis Island. We sail between those two islands on the way to eventually getting into Roly Island, which is in the Kermadecs. No GPS in those days, so you had to do it the old sextant and watch type dead reckoning to get where we wanted to around the Pacific. So that's me doing the timing, and the skipper, who incidentally was an Englishman, and his first sighting, he said, I said, John, what's the problem? And he said, well, from my reckoning, we're off the coast of Bermuda. And I said, no, if we turn around, we can follow our wake back to Auckland. So we're definitely nowhere near Bermuda. Let me have a go at it. And I said, I'm not a sailor, but I am a pilot. So what I'll do is I'll equate tide with wind. And I did a calculation, put a dot on the map. And I said, that's where I think we are, John, which makes a lot of sense. And he says, oh, that's right. We're in the southern hemisphere, not the northern hemisphere. Let me make my corrections. And his dot fell on top of my dot eventually. So we're all happy. That's the skipper and myself sort of just doing some dead reckoning to make sure we get to where we think we're going to get to. And finally, we see right on the horizon, Roly Island. Look, my apologies for the quality of the photos. Incidentally, these photos are been digitized from slides which are nearly 40 years old. So I've done the best I can. And eventually see the weather station that's on Roly Island. It's no longer manned, so Roly Island and the Kermadecs is now fully automated. But in those days, there was manned by 4 guys at the time for a 2-year stint. They'd go up there man the weather station and make local hooch from the wild oranges. So yeah, quite an exciting place to be at times. And so the only way we could get onto the island was literally being craned aboard. So we had to get from the boat, jump onto this ladder, which is connected to a crane, and we're craned out of the boat, which was interesting because you had to get the swell timed correctly, so that as the boat came up to the swell brought the boat up towards the ladder. It's a case of making the lunge for the ladder and grab that before the boat fell away again on the next swell. So I think that's John and myself hanging on to this jolly ladder as we get winched aboard or winched ashore. A lot of fun. That's Ron ZL1 AMO. Some of you may have worked Ron in years gone by. Sadly, he is also silent key now. Ron was an expert in CW, and I think some of you may have well worked him. Dwayne got the obligatory dunking. You're not going to get on the island without the local boys up there dunking you in the water. So. And that's what we had to sort of lunge and stand on to. Likewise, all our gear was transported. You can see now we're out of the boat and up by that little hut there up the side of the cliff. All our gear also had to be brought ashore this way. So in the light of the Bouvet DX-Pedition, which has just been, yeah, we've had some fun as well in the past. So it is pretty rugged sort of landing. That's the only way in which we can get onto Royal Island. Once we're on Royal Island, though, we did have the luxury of some buildings that we could use. And so this is a disused wool shed, which we set up our gear in there. Again, we had to use a little bit of subterfuge to get up to here because the government, the Department of Conservation won't allow amateur operation from the Kermadec Islands just as under the auspices of an amateur radio DX-Pedition. So we got hold of the Auckland University, found a bunch of scientists that wanted to do some scientific research on the island. We paid to get them there on the boat and so on like that. And we went under the auspices of providing communication should they need it on the island. When they didn't need it, well, you got 3-4 amateurs going, well, what can we do? Oh, well, we'll operate radio. Small little tri-band. Now we're 200 foot above the sea level here, so no need to get the tri-band up in any height. At the edge of that photo, just at the back of that field, it just drops away. The cliff just drops away straight down to the ocean floor. And right along that cliff edge there, there's some very, very large Norfolk pines. And so we're able to sling 160 and 80 meter dipoles up into the Norfolk pines. And then use the tri-band. I think it was one of 2 or 3 tri-bands that we had that we shared amongst us. That's me sitting at an operating position, no desks or anything. I just had a lump of wood across my knees and to write a log. And in those days, we had to write a log, physically write the log. There's no such thing as electronic logs or anything like that. I think I'm using an ICOM 720, so that dates it. ICOM 720 with the automatic tuner here, then over here is a Dentron amplifier. Yeah, and so that was the operating position. Oh, there's another shot of the There's a keyboard there. So, oh, that's right. I did have a RTTY RTTY set up there as well. So there it is. Once again, pretty, what do you say, primitive, but nonetheless, it worked. It was one of the other stations. It looks like an ICOMS 730, I think it is. The island is covered in native trees, and so from a scientific point of view, the guys were very interested in the native fauna and also the wildlife, particularly the one of the birds that were up on the island called a tui. We have tuis here on the mainland here in New Zealand, but apparently the tuis up in Roly Island have a different song than our ones here in New Zealand. And for some reason, the scientists wanted to study these bird songs. So it's okay. They can study the bird songs as long as we can carry on with our, our amateur radio. Welcome to Roly Island. Don't know who that guy is. If you want to climb to the top of the island, it is quite a climb. I think, can you read that one? I guess so. Now, this is a very interesting shot, this, because this is from the top of the cliffs at cliff face down there, and there's a little bit of white speck there in the water. Can you see there where my cursor is moving? That white speck holds a little bit of significance. Any guesses as to what it might be? Anybody? No. There's the top of it. You can see the white speck a little bit better now. And there's the bottom of it. So while we're on Roly Island, we had a cyclone come down from the Pacific. And the normal procedure, I believe, I'm not a yachty. The normal procedure is to sail out ahead of the storm and wait for the storm to blow over and then come back again. So our skipper decided that's what he'd do. He hopped on the boat, started sailing away, but went around the other side of the island and saw a nice little, what looks to be a nice natural cove. In fact, it's called Boat Cove, and decided to go in there and shelter in there. Well, the storm went across the island and saw this little boat, backed up, picked the boat up and threw it on the rocks, and sunk our ferrocement boat for us. So that's the ferrocement boat underwater. That's the day afterwards. Not really where a boat should ought to be. So we were stranded on a rare DX island at that time. The Kermadec were, I think, were certainly definitely in the top 10 wanted countries in the world. And so 4 amateur radio operators are stranded on this rare DX island. Bit of a shame, isn't it? So we had to get we called the New Zealand Navy to come and rescue us, but that was going to cost an arm and a left leg, and to get us back home. Fortunately, my wife, who's also an amateur radio operator, ZL1 Foxtrot Victoria, she was able to arrange or found a cargo ship which was coming down from Tonga, that one there. And so it stopped off on Roly Island on the way through and picked us up, and we were able to clamber aboard this cargo ship and make our way home back to New Zealand that way. The cargo ship didn't have an ounce of cargo on board, so it floated around like a cork on the top of the water. And we hit another storm on the way home, which wasn't fun because we got thrown around quite a bit, even in that big cargo ship. But eventually we found our way home, and that was the expedition to the Kermadec Islands. So there you go. So yeah, Duvet guys, I know you had your problems as well, but you know, most of these DX-Peditions are you can have a fair bit of fun with. And some other day, maybe we can go through some of the fun we had down at Auckland Island, which is way down the other end of the country from New Zealand. The problem in the Auckland Islands were sea lions and some of the wildlife not wanting you to invade their territory and doing their utmost to keep you away from the place. So it was a bit of fun as well. Okay, I'll put myself back to there. And if you have any questions at all from anybody, I'm more than happy to talk about them. And so on. I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight of what DX-Peditioning is like. Remember, it's a one-man DX-Pedition, so in the main, the Auckland, the Kermadec, and so on, that we had a team. But the other ones have been one man. So whatever, remember, I've got to carry everything, and and that's not a lot of fun when you have to get yourself through airports, and you got multiple bags with you. One, as soon as you've got any multiple bags anywhere around the island, that's an invitation to charge you for excess luggage, and they really have got the charging down to a fine art and know how to really sting you for that. And two, they want to charge you customs as well. So in fact, that's how the DX Commander expedition model was developed. In many ways, I took a DX-Pedition Classic up with me to Papua New Guinea. Now, the Classic is too long. It won't go in the overhead locker of an airplane. It's long enough you have to check it in, and it's checked luggage. So that's something else that when you arrive, they want to have a look at. And if they have a look at it, and well, yeah, we've got to charge you for that, you know. So when I got back, Callum and I got together, and I said, Callum, we want something that can pack down into the size of my suitcase. Here's the dimensions of my suitcase. And so the DX-Pedition, the DX Commander expedition model came into being, and it neatly fits into my suitcase. Now, once it's in my suitcase, what can't be seen is not worried about. So we're fine.
Well, first of all, just like to officially thank you, Roly, for coming on. There was a couple more that have dropped out, but some of our internet connections of a couple of our friends are a little bit hit and miss.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah,
we've had several people pay apologies, and we're a club of 43 or 44, and we get the same sort of dozen or so that come on regularly. And we're trying to slowly work on people with the thumb screws to get them on Zoom as well. But on behalf of everybody, I'm sure we'll all join in thanking Roly for joining us. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to stop recording, and then we can have a bit, if anyone's got any questions, we can carry on from there. But thank you, Roly.